out of the military. We ask that you would bless our families, Lord God. In Jesus' name today, we give you the honor and the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I'm going to go over some of the rules. We've already went over a few of them before. One of the things that we ask is that everyone at least stay mute or be silent if you're not the one speaking, so that way we can make sure that we can hear the answers clearly. Due to the number of questions and the limited amount of time, if you didn't, let me get ready to pull up the slides. This is the agenda we're going to do today. We're using today. Next, we're going to have the icebreaker by Lieutenant Colonel Woods.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. All right, I'm here. So as I looked and I thought about the icebreaker, you know, I'd love to take the time to get to know everyone, and I'm sure we want to know about each other, but boy, we have a lot of people on this meeting. So for the sake of time, I just want you to think about something, and I'm going to give you a little insight. And the question is, how do we measure success? Think about that for a moment. How do we measure success? You know, some people would argue or think that the higher you get in rank is relevant to your success. But the true measure of success is really your ability to how you treat other people and how those people work for you, okay? The measure of your success is how you treat people and how they will work for you. So you got to take joy in making the people successful and take care of them. And in turn, they will take care of you. In other words, always treat people with respect and dignity. And you won't have to ask them to do things for you. They will automatically do those things for you to make you successful. That's what I will tell you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move on to the mentorship purpose, which will be presented by Colonel Terry.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm glad everyone could make it. Those that couldn't make it, you know, we understand. There'll be plenty more opportunities for this. But with mentorship, mentorship is important because it's a legacy build. It's legacy building on a professional level. The legacy of mentorship lives on through those you mentor. So what we're trying to do here is start that legacy, right? So as we begin our mentorship with those of you who are just now coming into the military, particularly either as a cadet or a newly minted lieutenant, or maybe even a less experienced first lieutenant. One of the great leadership mentors and authors of several leadership books, John C. Maxwell, once said, one of the greatest values of mentors is the ability to see ahead what others cannot see and to help them navigate a course to their destination. So that's what we're attempting to do as an alumni group for our young cadets and officers coming out of the program. Mentoring provides an officer a haven to ask about anything of concern regarding their professional future. So it's always good to try to seek out a mentor and ask to be mentored. And a few of the questions that you might want to ask is ask yourself is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? what skills do I want to learn? What are the ultimate goals I have in mind for my career? And more importantly, what skills do I possess right now? So those are some of the things that you need to take into consideration as you're looking for a mentor and also as being a mentee. So those are the things that we're trying to accomplish here with our alumni association. So we hope we're able to get that legacy part of this started and continue on as we do this new thing that we're trying to do for our young folks out there. Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have Mrs. Hobbs. She's going to introduce the participants.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm not certain whether or not you guys can see me, but I know that I can see you. This is one of the good things. We have some good news here. Good news or good things are still going on in COVID-19 season. The best news is we're here all together, despite it all. It is something that did not stop us. And here's the other good news. You don't have to receive any more emails from me. So I know that you guys' emails were flooded with emails, corrections, and so forth and so on. But anytime you're trying to do something great, something different, something that's going to make a difference, there's going to always be some spiritual warfare or just warfare, period. It's something to make you turn around and stop, but keep going for where you're going, and you'll be successful. The other good news is this is our first annual Purview on the ROTC Alumni Mentorship Teleconference. It's truly an honor, and it's truly a privilege to have you all grace us with your presence, and it does my heart well to look out and to see so many of our Purview officers here from different classes coming together for one common cause. And also our guest officer affiliates who have a desire to strengthen our careers or your careers and support one another. Mentorship pays it forward. Thank you for being selfless by investing your time and thinking well enough of your careers, your fellow officers, and the university's program, and believing in it that you can glean from your alumni and our guests and also leave a deposit. Together, we are stronger, and where there's unity, there's always blessings. Well, today we have some of the spring class of 2020 commission officers that are excited and waited to be poured into. This class made history as being the first class to receive a virtual commission. The Zoom platform allowed that as well. Just as I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 is not stopping everything. Some things are going well. Okay, so I will go on and speak a little bit more about who our mentors are. And I want you to know before I start that, iron sharpens iron, part of the mentorship. All of us are great individuals that are here. And therefore, I will begin with I'm going to not call out all 34 names. Richard, if it's possible, can you put the screen down and we can open it up a little bit more of the Zoom? Thank you. Here we go. I'm not going to call out every name as I mentioned before, but who I will call out, I'm not exactly certain if all is online, but I want to acknowledge some of our mentors that have paved the way, some of our mentors that are retired. They have some different experience, not only the military experience, but they also have their experience as far as living in this world. Okay, we have Colonel, I'm not certain if he's available, but Colonel Edwards, is he available?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have Colonel Rosenberg, is he available?
He's not on.
Okay, Colonel Barbara Taylor.
I'm here.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, we have Colonel, also her husband, Bernard Taylor.
Yeah. Yes, we're on, thank you.
Lieutenant Colonel Buford. No, she was here.
She's here. She's still there. She just muted.
Okay, no problem.
I'm here. I don't mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you as well. We have Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hamilton, Signal Corps. Of course, Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Hobbs.
Why?
Okay, Lieutenant Colonel James Wood, retired. There you go. Major Shane, Ross Shane. Okay. She's there. She just can't hear it. And we have Major Fred Washington. I may have that incorrect. Is he on?
No, he's not on.
And we also have CW5 Jesse French, Adjutant General. I saw his name somewhere. But those are our mentors that are here, but we also have other mentors that are here with us as well that are active duty. And because, like we mentioned earlier, because for the sake of time, we're not gonna go through every single name, but I do want to mention the ones who are just recently been commissioned. Okay, we have Second Lieutenant Jasmine Bryers. She's already in basic training. Okay. Not basic training, I'm sorry, she's in BOLA, correct?
Oh, I'm at my duty station already now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we have Second Lieutenant Christopher Hobbs. It's out there somewhere. We have Second Lieutenant Regina Bobbitt.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. Second Lieutenant Jay Williams. Okay, he may not be here. Second Lieutenant Tevin Crawford. Second Lieutenant Aaron Brown. And Second Lieutenant Kolo Okono. Those are the ones that we have. I want you to know, mentors, that they are hungry and they come with an expectation to receive valuable information. And we are confident that once they leave this VTC, they will have enhanced knowledge to further pursue their journey of success. So we thank you. We thank all those whose name I did not call for coming on, but I want to give you just a little bit of history, not me give you some history, but Shane Ross is our 1979 commissioning, correct?
Sean Gross.
Sean Gross. If you just give us a minute of history, if you can.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. When I came to Prairie View in 1975, I was the first cadet to come with a 4-year ROTC scholarship. And then in my senior year, I majored in electrical engineering. And my senior year, I was, in fact, the first female battalion commander. I did earn more points than the others, so don't think it was just because I had a scholarship, but it was great. And so, and then my story is quite different for the active duty time, but we can get in that a little later. So right now, that's who I am when I got to Prairie View, and I love the university and want to support everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you all again for coming on and taking time, as I mentioned earlier, to invest in yourselves, invest in others. Without further ado, we will begin.
Okay. Now we'll turn over to James Woods. He's going to be the moderator. Lieutenant Colonel Woods.
Black, were you going to do the protocol first?
I'm sorry, my bad.
Yes, sir. So everyone, again, welcome to the call. Because of our time restraint, we have asked that everyone follow the agenda and the questions that have been provided. We have both questions that come from the mentees, and then there are responders that have already been pre-selected. So if you have thoughts around the response that comes out, we ask that you would use the chat box rather than prolong the conversation, so we can keep our time for this afternoon. And I'll turn it back over to Colonel Woods. Thank you, sir.
Okay, without further ado, and just one thing to add, there are some items that do not have a specific person identified for the response. So I would just ask if you have something to add pertaining to that question, please go ahead and chime in. We'll go ahead and begin with the first question here, which is, how can I prepare for BOLIC? And those two responders are Lieutenant Colonel Hobbs and Lieutenant Colonel Taylor. Go ahead, please.
Sure. Preparing for BOLIC. When you look at BOLIC, BOLIC has 3 phases in it that we've identified: academic, physical, and mental. So I'm going to speak to you about the academic side of it. When you look at BOLIC, you need to prepare for BOLIC almost in the same sense that you would prepare for school. One of the key things that you need to be able to do is you need to make sure that you are reading, and that you are reading everything that you can get your hands on that's out there. Reading will allow you to understand what it is in your particular branch, the language, the communication, because the Army, obviously we all know, communicates with acronyms, and those acronyms are seen different and understood differently as you look across the different branches. So make sure that you're doing that. There's an expectation that you understand, that you know everything that is already in writing within your particular branch. So make sure that you simply read on that. There's a physical aspect of it and a mental aspect of it. Colonel Taylor?
Yes, good morning. One of the things that I wrote down, and I spoke with a great friend of mine who has been the training brigade commander for for BOLC itself and the Captain's Career Course, is be physically fit when you show up. That could be one of the things that will get you put out of the Army or removed from the Army. Be physically fit when you show up and ready to go. The second piece is distractions. And what I mean by distractions, meaning balancing what you have to do in the classroom by, taking good notes, asking key and pertinent questions when you don't know the answer, ask those questions, versus being able to do your physical fitness and being able to balance both of those at the same time. So you will have to be a great manager of your time, but make sure you're paying attention in class. But that physical fitness is going to be the number one thing there. And don't be, I'll say it's okay to gravitate towards people that look like you. As an example, when you go to Field Artillery Basic Course, you may have 600 students show up, but only 20 of those may be African American or Latino or other. So it's okay to gravitate towards those folks. But the key is be physically fit, manage your time, and be a good communicator as well. If you run into a issue or what have you, then approach that company commander or battery commander to be able to assist you with whatever issue you may be having at that time. And last but not least, enjoy school and reflect on it when you get to your new location or new duty station. That's all I have, Art.
Okay, Ms. Fisher, you can go ahead and respond.
So, good day. I'm Helene Fisher. I received my commission from Prairie View A&M in 1986. I was in the Signal Corps, and I ended up staying active duty just 4 years, and I served 10 years in the reserves. However, I've been in the federal government space throughout my career, and I'm currently serving as a president of a publicly traded company. And I know that it's been my experience in the military that has gotten me there. But I wanted to comment about a life-changing event that happened during my basic officer course. As was just mentioned about gravitating to those who are like we are. When I went to my signal officer basic course, I immediately gravitated toward those African Americans who were in my class. It was a great thing to do, but what ended up happening is we all decided that we were going to take this very seriously. We were going to study, we were going to pass these tests, and we were going to excel. What happened initially is that we received lower scores on our tests than our Caucasian counterpart. And we thought, well, maybe we just didn't study hard enough. We weren't concentrating on the material. We studied again. We continued to receive lower scores. What ultimately happened is that we decided that maybe we weren't the right group to study and that we were going to break up and we were going to join the other study groups with our Caucasian counterparts. The very first time we went in to study with those counterparts, someone from the class ahead of us, another Caucasian counterpart, came in and handed someone else the answers to the tests. We all thought that we were deficient, we hadn't learned enough through our education, but it turned out that there was a process in place that caused us to have lower scores. We immediately reported, but what it taught me from a life lesson is what many of you have been taught. You are just as smart, you are just as bright, you are probably brighter than your counterparts, and don't let something like that bring you down. I've taken that same lesson throughout the rest of my career to get to where I am. And so you may not have that experience. You may, I pray you never experience it, but just know that you are equipped with everything that you have to excel and be better than. So I just wanted to give that one little piece, because when I experienced that, I was devastated those first 2 tests, thinking, well, maybe we just aren't as smart, but we were. So, and then once that was reported, our test scores excelled higher than everyone else's.
All right. Before we move on to the next question, I just want to highlight one word I saw in the chat, and I just want everybody to keep this word in their pocket. For you young officers, you need to keep it in your pocket for your whole career. And that word I saw was assimilate. Okay? Keep that in your pocket. All right, next question. While in BOLC, what should I expect to encounter? And that's Second Lieutenant Jasmine Breers is the responder to that question. Jasmine, are you on?
I'm here, sir. So, like, what exactly is that geared towards, sir? Like, just experiences overall?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to Logistics BOLC at Fort Lee, and I know right now it's virtual, so things are different, but we had like open note tests, so that made things a lot easier. But there were still people, of course, that had the answers. We formed study groups. It was like 8 Black people in my class. So we sat by each other. Instructors would come in and they would see that we were sitting by each other, and they would tell us to spread out. But at the end of the day, like, that's what we felt comfortable around. And we just stuck together, really. And we did PT on our own. So like the Colonel mentioned before, PT is important. And a lot of people would just go back to their room, go to sleep. But you got to surround yourself with people that's going to go PT regardless. And I think that showed greatly, because a lot of people gain a lot of weight. They're going to the bar, because you got an open bar at ISG at Fort Lee. It's to have a good time, but you got to stay focused. And that was a big experience in BOLC too. A lot of people were drinking, and you got to be careful to get DUIs. So you don't want to mess up and get a DUI before your career even starts. And that was a surprise. I didn't know there was going to be a bar there, but it was fun. BOLC was really relaxed compared to like AIT or basic training. It was relaxed. We finished class at like 1300. So it wasn't strict, but you still had to get your stuff done. And it's really on you. You're responsible for your success at BOLC, and you have control. So stay focused, get with like-minded people, and it's too easy.
Thanks, very good. Appreciate that. All right, now moving on to the next question. And this is to be answered by Captain Johnson and Captain Riggins. Besides not passing the exams or PT tests, what are some other reasons someone will fail BOLC?
Hello, Captain Johnson here. So one of the key things that I found out that can allow you to fail BOLC right off the bat, or any institution, school that you go to, is plagiarism. So if they catch you, or the instructors catch you plagiarizing or not citing your work properly, then you can definitely be brought up, and you can be kicked out, and they can also chap you out on an ethics violation. So that's a big thing. I know it was a captain's career course, and if I reflect back on that, when I was a lieutenant, I'm pretty sure it's a big thing. And the thing that Lieutenant Byers brought up about DUI, that happens a lot, because you want to be socially active amongst your peers, but you have to understand that your job is to go there to learn. Same thing happened to me. I went to go study with a group of people, and actually a higher ranked person was like, "Oh man, you don't need to study for those tests. You can just hear the answers." And of course, me just not wanting to be brought up on ethics charges or anything. Oh, that's okay. Well, I probably should stop hanging around you, because you can get in trouble for that. So had I took his paper and modified it on my own, you could easily be brought up on ethics charges or plagiarizing it, and that's a big thing. And as we've seen throughout history, recent charges of other people, you can get kicked out for that.
And just Captain Riggins here, and just a caveat off of that. Also, another way you can get kicked out is pretty much not trying. If you go there with a bad attitude, and pretty much the instructors and the other students can see that, that can reflect on your evaluations. And if you continue to get negative evaluations, that could factor into getting you kicked out of school as well. And also getting in trouble off post can also get you kicked out of school as well.
Okay, thanks for that input. Moving on to the next question. How does camp and BOLC impact my career? And that's Captain Cheryl Gross. Captain Gross?
I think it's Sean, not Cheryl.
I'm looking at what's written here. Let me go ahead and try to throw in something on that answer. Are you coming up? Okay. The bottom line is when you're in BOLC, you're building part of the foundation for your career. So those habits, those work ethics, those things that you assimilate to, those are going to follow you throughout your career. This is your start point at BOLC. Does anyone have anything to add on that?
This is Captain Mackey. I'll add on to that. I don't, for those who are in the reserve or in National Guard, just please expect, you're gonna, when you get to BOLC in Captain's Career Course, you're gonna learn the active duty way. You're not gonna learn the reservist way. Unfortunately, they don't make courses for reservists or National Guard. Our systems are different, our procedures are different, although the regulations and some of the basics may be the same. Once you get to your reserve unit, you're gonna be like, what? I did not learn this at BOLC or Captain's Career Course. So just make sure you do take in the basics of, I'm an AG officer, so I was totally lost. I was so mad, of course, and I am not learning any AG. That's when you need to lean on your senior NCOs or your NCIC to teach you the way.
You're coming in very broken up, so I don't know what's going on, but you're very broken. Okay, anyone else have anything to add quickly, or we're going to move on?
Yes, sir. This is Major Whitney Sims. So just a little bit on that. When it comes to camp and BOLC, these are your first opportunities outside of your, besides your FTXs during ROTC. These are your first opportunities to take the things that you've learned during ROTC and the skills, social skills that you've developed and your military skills that you've developed and put them to use first at camp, in the field environment with outsiders, with people who are with vastly different backgrounds. So this is your first opportunity to put those skills to the test and to practice them and to refine them. I can say from my experience now 12 years later that I was not very successful. However, I did pass. I learned some things and I took those things I learned and I refined them so that when I came back for my MS4 year, I was able to hopefully pass those on to my MS3s as they went on. And then as I went to BOLC, when you're in BOLC, this is, as was mentioned in the chat, this is your first opportunity to interact with your peers. Essentially, these are most of the same people that are going to move alongside you throughout your career, and so the relationships you build here in BOLC can help guide you, can help develop you, and help push you throughout your military career. Even now, I've worked with a good half of my class that I graduated BOLIC with, and I'm still running into them, and the classes before me and the classes after me who are in units with me. So this is your first opportunity to network within your branch, to build those relationships, to know who's going to help you, who you can help, who's, as we say, the person who's going to try to stand out because they want to be the top and forget everybody else who's along with them. So this is your opportunity to build those relationships, to find those people, and to communicate. And then as you're going through your career, these are also your peers. These are the people that you're going to ping your ideas off of, who are going to help you develop yourself, left and right limits, not limits, left and right development to your battle buddies, excuse me.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next question, which there is no one identified. So one of you ordnance officers, I need you to jump on this. Definitely current, if you're currently serving. Now that ordnance is placed with the other logistical branches when it comes to BOLIC, is it more favorable to pay closer attention to their inner workings over my own?
This is Captain Faison. I'm an ordnance officer. I'm National Guard, but I'm actually active duty operational support. And I commissioned as ordnance in 2013. So with that question, I would say you still need to focus on ordnance and still need to focus on maintenance just as much. Even though that you are going to be now a 90 series, a logistics officer, meaning ordnance, transportation, and quartermaster, that means you could be put into a paragraph of line in one of these organizations, whether it be a combat support sustainment battalion or a BSB, where you could be that maintenance officer that's going to be that MCO, maintenance control officer, where you're briefing your battalion commander along with the battalion maintenance officer of maintenance for the whole entire organization. You could be somewhere where you are a platoon leader in a sustainment or support maintenance company as well, where you have to be on your game with ordnance itself. And at the same time, even when you are a XO in a company, maintenance is always one of your main focuses, point blank period. You're going to be good on your inventories, but you have to make sure you're maintenance. You need to make sure you don't understand your operational picture. You need to make sure that you have everything in line for when you guys are going out on your convoys or you're maintaining your equipment. You know exactly what's going on. So it sucks right now, but focus on as much as all three branches as you can, because it will help you down the long way when you get to different positions where as you progress, you become, a captain or field grade when you're in support operations, where you're expected to know all three branches and make sure you can get the job done for whoever you're supporting.
Hey, thank you. Very, very good insights. Very good. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on to the next question, and this is to be answered by Captain Calvin Johnson and Captain Eric LaCour. In terms of promotion or even possibly transitioning to a different branch, what is the realistic time frame that one serves within their branch?
Captain Johnson here. So as far as promotion, I think most of the people in my year group 10, we all experienced that. So you usually go from a second lieutenant to first lieutenant is 18 months. And then after that, you spend the bulk majority of your time as a first lieutenant until you make captain. I know the old way it was 4 years, and then it recently went from 3 years to 42 months to 48 months. So now it's back to 48 months. You're going to be at your first duty station for the entire 48 months, unless you were at career first. As far as in terms of changing over from one branch to the next branch, you more than likely would have to be a first lieutenant promotable, and there's a process called the Voluntary Transfer Incentive Program, VTIP is what we call it, and that is how you transfer from one branch to the next branch or either to a functional area. At that point, sometimes they want you to have a captain's career course, or before you go to captain's career course, or sometimes they want you to already be a captain. It's just branch or functional area dependent. And then at this point, I'll let Captain McCord talk about the rest because he's actually already did the VTIP process.
Yeah, so hey, how's everybody going? I'm Captain Eric LaCour. I'm a functional area 26 Alpha, which is a network engineer. I'm active duty. What I wanted to touch on was so a little bit on the VTIP process for the younger ones. You can't do that until you're a first lieutenant promotable. So use that time prior to that to kind of focus on being a leader and working with soldiers, and just have an idea of just use that time to kind of understand your branch. But once you become a first lieutenant promotable, then all the way until the rest of your career, you're eligible to make those jumps between branches. That's dictated via the VTIP, what's called the in and out chart. And you'll look at this chart, and right now it's going from year group 2017 to year group 2007. And it tells you based on which branch, if they're allowing people in, if they're allowing people out, or if they're allowing both, or if the branch is closed altogether. So you'll have to use that to pretty much base when you're gonna jump in and out of a branch. One of the things, since I went through the process, one of the things that helped me make those kind of decisions that I wanted to throw as a key piece for the younger guys is develop your 5-year plan and keep that as a living document. So on your 5-year plan, you wanna look at some of your professional goals, some of the things you're interested in. You also, within those, you wanna nest the short-term goals needed to make those future ones possible. So that means you're gonna have to start doing some research in some of these things that you're looking into, whether it's a functional area, a technical functional area, whether it's soft or et cetera. And then lastly, on that 5-year plan, you should also put your personal matters, factor in personal matters such as school, when you're getting married, because those are also important in how you're trying to plan out that. And then always bounce, like I said, living document, always bounce that off of a mentor or a trusted professional. That way you keep, you keep changing. It doesn't become stagnant and you miss some opportunities because you didn't do your research prior. So that's all I had on that.
Very good insights, very good insights. That said, we'll go ahead and move on to some branch specific items. And that first item we're going to discuss is going to be Adjutant General. And that's Captain Kelly. Are you up?
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Speak up just a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. So I'm Captain Kelly, Captain Promotable Kelly. Well, actually, Major Fraught Kelly. And I am an AG officer for the Adjutant General Corps. Currently, I'm getting ready to take command of the El Paso MEPS. And I am available if any of you all need to reach out to me via email to ask questions specifically. And I know that there are a lot of us on here who are AG officers, but basically within the AG Corps, I was actually chemical first and then branch detailed over to AG. So I have both of those, I guess you can say, under my belt. But as an AG officer, I can definitely say, excuse me, hold on, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, can you hear me? I apologize. But as an AG officer, I can definitely say that you'll have a lot of information at your fingertips, readily available to you, more than the rest of your counterparts. So as an AG officer, everything that you need to learn and everything that you need to know can be found in a DAPM, can be found in a regulation. It can be found in some of the mill suites. It can be found in the mill message. So as an AG officer, the best information that I can give you is to read, to research, and to reach out to other AG officers within the branch, to reach out to HRC, and to communicate and network with other officers, because that information that you can just pull from all of those resources are going to be vital to your career. And then, like I said, you're going to be privy to a lot of things that a lot of other officers are not going to know. So people are coming to you looking for having questions and looking for answers. So it will behoove you as an AG officer to definitely do your research and to gain that best that you can, the best way that you know. Are there any particular questions specifically to the AG branch?
The one that says, what does the average day consist of within the branch?
Okay, so as an AG officer, I would definitely say that customer service is big. You're going to find yourself busy all the time. And that is whether with phone calls, that is with people coming to your office, like I said, because they're coming to you with questions. So an average day typically consists of meetings that you are going to definitely have to be involved with, but I said customer service earlier. You have people in and out processing all day, and you have updates that need to be done. So as far as ORB updates, ERB updates, things of that nature. You have awards, you have actions. So things are continuously being processed through your section at all times. You may find yourself or your team will probably be there a little bit later than the rest of the staff in your company, in your battalion. So I would say definitely be flexible with your time and understand that a lot of the things that you necessarily have to get done is going to require you to disseminate. The best thing I can say is disseminate those tasks, because your subject matter experts are going to be in your shop. So those subject matter experts can be PFCs. Those subject matter experts can be specialists. And a lot of the tasks that you do, you can teach them how to do. And so that would be my best advice to you as an AG officer in a typical day on trying to maintain your heavy loads and everything that you need to get done, is to disseminate and lean on your NCOICs and whomever else you may have in your section.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving right along, we next have a signal, and that's Captain Calvin Johnson.
Yes, Captain Johnson here. So a typical day for a signal officer, of course, at this point, you have probably went through BODIC, whether or not they require you to take a Security Plus test and effectively understand signal flow. That's some of the big keys takeaway that you'll take from the signal core and BODIC. So on a typical day, if you're a platoon leader, most people either be platoon leader, XO, or S6. And most of these things remain the same. A typical day, if we take out Monday, it would be motor pool Monday, right? The first half of the day is motor pool Monday. So you will go in your service your vehicles, check them out, PMCS, preventive maintenance checks and services. And then after that, the next part of the day, either you'll report the discrepancies or give the paperwork to the executive officer, or if you're executive officer, you would take that paperwork and you eventually take that to your motor sergeant to get the deficiencies worked on by either your soldiers or the mechanics. The next half of the day, if we break it down by blocks of the day, the first half of the day, the second half of the day, that's usually how I try to do it. The second half of the day, you could either do more maintenance, or you could have some team or squad or specific type of training. So in that type of training, you could either have crew drills is what we call them. So crew drills, how to set up your network nodes, or crew drills on how to do an OE254, set up antennas. You try to get proficient at those things. So that's a typical day. And then sometimes in the morning before PT, of course PT, before PT, your commander could actually have a meeting in the morning, or he can wait till afterwards to gather your thoughts. Or he may have a closeout end of day formation. after with the lieutenants or the XO to close out your thought. That's usually a typical day. Of course, your time usually isn't micromanaged, so it's up to you to have time management and to structure your day. The one question one of my commanders used to give me all the time is, what did you accomplish today, and what could you have done better today to accomplish your task? So that's all I have right now.
Hey, thank you. That's plenty. Next, we have Field Artillery, Lieutenant Colonel Taylor.
Yes, good morning again, everyone. Again, I am Bernard Taylor, and again, I was Field Artillery and AG, and I fielded most of the Army's first wave digital equipment in a tactical unit, which is, again, was a Field Artillery unit. And what Field Artillery taught me was the Army's tactical and technical side of things. It ultimately taught me combined arms, which is all branches and how they work and function on the battlefield. And once if you are a combat arms officer, you will figure this all out once you make captain, how everything comes together on the battlefield. Next, Field Artillery is the art and science of combining all the combined arms together. As a second lieutenant arriving to your new battalion, the jobs you can expect to be assigned to in a Field Artillery unit is a battery XO, a platoon leader, a fire direction officer, and or a staff position. You will want to learn at the lowest level possible and work your way up. Be confident and be resourceful. Also, ask those soldiers down at the lowest levels, what is their primary job? As a field artilleryman and or a combat arms person, you may not see the entire breadth or depth of your organization until you get into the field. So most of your time is going to be preparing to get to the field. So have those young soldiers show you what they do on a daily basis. Also, build a good relationship with your platoon sergeant and first sergeant without fraternization, meaning especially after work hours. A lot of you will be the same age as a lot of young soldiers, and you're gonna tend to gravitate towards them, and they're gonna want to hang out. You're gonna see them at the club. Don't do that. You know, keep yourself separated, and then ultimately just do your best. Now, on a daily basis in a field artillery unit, you can expect to come in and you're gonna do PT. After that, when you come back for your regular work hours, you're gonna be doing maintenance on equipment and on weapons. You'll be preparing to go to the field. Ultimately, you'll be taking care of soldiers and their families while you're back there in the rear. Also, you'll be preparing training schedules. But ultimately, one of the key things that I haven't heard anyone talk about, I know they should still go over this at BOLC, is property accountability. That's another thing that could get you placed out of the Army or get charges brought upon you. Property accountability is going to be absolute essential. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving on, logistics and ordnance. This Captain Facion is going to go ahead and take this one minus the EOD.
Okay, so yes, I was National Guard, but I have deployed and I am on active duty status now. So it might be a little different from active duty, but usually what we did is on Mondays, of course, was maintenance Monday. So we will all do the PMCS on our vehicles. I would do at least a 10 to 50% check of all the 5988 echoes to make sure that they're completed and to make sure that the supervisor's signature was actually on there for it actually to be a complete 5988. Now, with most of these new lieutenants here, of course, you guys are going to be using GTSS. So it behooves you guys to actually know how to work that system and get to the right pages so you can start pulling out the actual reports. We're no longer using the 026 report. It's all through GTSS. So after we finish our PMCS of the vehicle, we will usually have a training meeting with the company commander. From there, he will lay out, our basic tasks for the next 30, 60, 90, as well as things he wanted to get accomplished by end of day. From there, I would go talk to my platoon sergeant. We'll get our teams together, our squads, and tell them, you know, which vehicles they would help out the other companies. Because we're in the BSP, I was in the Bravo company. So we would just go out, help those guys with their vehicle, make sure everything's correct. And if I needed to send a team out there to work on weapons, we would go send that team out to that area so they can go PMCS weapons and any issues that wasn't 10 level. After that, we would do PT at the end of the day, and then everybody would go home.
Okay. Hey, there was no one identified for the finance. Do we have any finance officers available? Chirp, chirp, chirp. Count that money. That's what I tell you. Don't lose track of 1 cent. All right. Chemical. Captain Gross.
I don't think she's present.
Jeff, you want to take this one?
Either Colonel George. One or the other. Colonel George or Colonel Rector.
George, do you mind taking it? I've been super fast for a long time now, so.
I'm tracking. You probably like me then.
Yeah.
Maybe Major Kelly.
Yeah.
I need a recent chemical officer.
Colonel George. You still muted.
This is Captain Johnson. So they used to have STBs. Now I think they're brigade engineer. Battalion, brigade engineer, or whatever. BEBs is what they call them. And it just depends on if you reside in that unit. The chemical officers there were in that unit. Said if it was around like 3 or 4 of them, 2 of those chemical officers in the day in life will work on the USR. And that's just a big report that's on the secret side that contains everything that has to do with the unit. It reports their readiness. And so they usually work on that a lot. And they are tasked or inside of the S3 shop. So they're tasked with things that the S3 needs them to do. And they just kind of help around with the battalion XO. And the ones who had platoons, they were actually had strikers, and they would actually go out on missions, and they would actually conduct rear security for the STB or the BEB, or when they would do log logistic packs, and they would also get everybody's mop level gear up to standard. So the guy, and they would rotate that platoon leadership out. So depending on what unit you would go to, you would rotate that platoon leadership out, so every chemical officer could get a part of the platoon leadership. And inside of that, that's how they did. So we went to the National Training Center. They actually got valuable training, and then they will eventually rotate them out to do chemical things, and they do all the chemical tests. So.
Okay. So let me just add one thing to that, because I hate to just leave it at, you thinking you're just a USR officer, because that used to be one of my P's, right? It's valuable for every officer to know the USR. That's what you need to sell to your commander, okay, as a chemical officer. And you have to be an expert with whatever unit you are attached to. Learn their trade. You will be the utility person in that unit, because usually you're smarter than half the people in the S3 shop. All right? So use your skills, learn other skills. Do not be afraid to tell your commander what is going on in the unit, because you're going to know more about the unit than any other officer in it just by the fact that you are doing the USR. So make yourself as valuable as possible at all times.
Hey, this is Colonel George. I think I'm unmuted now.
All right.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was definitely, I will tell you that my experience as a chemical officer is not a recent one, but the fact that USR is the only thing that we could come up is one of the reasons why I absolutely have to speak up as a chemical officer. And I think-
you feel my passion.
Yes, so my good pal, Jeffrey Rector, I definitely know he probably has more recent experience than I do. And I would like to say this, that chemical is one of those one of the reasons why chemical officers oftentimes get USR as the duty is because no one knows what to do with a fine chemical officer. And so, and our name has morphed so much. So for those of you that have chosen chemical as a field, I think you should take it with the greatest amount of pride. And of course, you know that the old 54B, which is as an officer, now you're a 74 Alpha, which has morphed from being a nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare officer to now you being a seaborne officer. It's still around. And don't be surprised is what we're experiencing right now as a pandemic, with the pandemic that we're in. Don't be surprised when they start to bring in some of the U.S. forces, if somehow, this is me being a theorist, that when our U.S. forces, which it will happen, start to get assimilated and pushed in, not only the medical forces, if they start to call upon some of the fine officers to include our forces, some of our chemical soldiers to be included. Yes, you heard it from me. So no different than any of the other branches that we've heard mentioning here. Yes, you got to do your basics, you got to do your advanced courses, and that's a functional area. But I will tell you, it's no different. You will do your normal, your advanced course. You would do your typical ILEs. You would do your typical, your other main courses as well. But as an 06, you can make those, same exact track records like anyone else has. Most people will tell you, oh no, you got to do these other advanced arms. No, you don't have to. As a female currently still serving in Puerto Rico, and I speak no Spanish, and chemical is the only MOS that I have, and it served me very well. You can have an illustrious career with the chemical MOS, and I have not served in a chemical unit for the past at least years, just by being chemical, and have served, and it served me very, very well. So just know that you don't, and I've not done a USR report also in the past 15 years. So all I'm saying is that and I've not done one USR report. So just know that it's just one of those that you can still have it, just tuck it in your back pocket, but still, there's some other MOSs and some other ASIs that you can actually still participate in. At the end of the day, you're still a military officer. Cool?
Hey, feel that passion. Feel that passion. You know what time it is. All right. Yes. Medical, Colonel Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Colonel Retired Barbara Taylor. I was a medical logistics officer and I served for 30 years. I retired in September of 2018. I was the only third African-American female to be promoted in my AOC, which is 70 kilo logistics, medical logistics. The Medical Service Corps is comprised of a wide diversity of medical, administrative, scientific, and provider specialty fields. It is separated into 4 different fields though. First field is the 70 Administrative Health Services field, which consists of the logistics officers, comptrollers, personnel, patient administration, medevac pilots, facility management, operations officers, health systems management. And the areas that I would recommend that I see a lot of us doing very well in is personnel, logistics. With logistics, you also have an opportunity to transition into contracting or acquisition as a medical officer, and operations. So all of the officers in these fields start out as a 70 Bravo. That's a basic field. You don't get to select the official AOC until after your captain year. So you start off working in the jobs that you think that you may want to transition into. But even with that, a board panel selects which AOC you will be placed in. The second area that we have is the medical allied science. Those are the lab officers, microbiology or blood bank officers. Those are folks that have science degrees. A lot of folks don't know that they can request these fields and they have these specialty degrees. Another field that we have is 72s, which is the preventive medicine sciences. Those are the environmental science, the entomologists, or the audiologists. So those are people with a specified degree. And then the last area is the clinical health science area. So, and these are just some of the fields that are listed under each of these AOCs. In the clinical health sciences, you have social workers, psychologists, podiatrists, and our pharmacists. And that, again, that is just some of the fields in these areas. But these are individuals that have specialized degrees when they come in. So I feel that it's important as a medical service officer to have both TDA, which is the table distribution of allowance, and TOE time, the table operations and equipment time. A lot of times they don't tell the soldiers what is their career path or what are some of the checkpoints that they need to have during their career path. But it's really important that you diversify your portfolio. When you become a senior officer, you may not qualify for certain jobs if you don't hit those certain key career points. So it's really good to understand what career path you need to take. It's the what is the regulation that guides the career path?
Oh, I was going to bring this up. DA PAM 600-3. I saw this in the notes. And a lot of people skip right over that, but it tells you what jobs that you should be looking for and your career path from lieutenant all the way up to colonel. So just look at DA PAM for your specific branch, DA PAM 600-3.
And again, this information a lot of times isn't shared with some of the minority officers. So sometimes you're not hitting those checkpoints that you may need to become a senior officer. So I believe that the medical field is a great field for officers to flourish in. And that's all I have, subject to any questions.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving right along. Hey, and here's where we are right now. We're a little past noon, and we've got a ton of questions left. I'm all about training the standard, not the time, but I gotta tell you, if you can make your question as succinct as possible, please try to do so. Going here forward. Does the Army provide classes to learn foreign languages? Colonel Taylor, back to you. The Taylors are representing.
Hey, we here in the fight, fit to fight. Hey, just real quick on foreign languages. Most of the foreign languages are in like intel units, special operations, and FAOs. The Army does have a Defense Language Institute out in California, but if you would like to do that, acquire a foreign language, you either have to do it on your own or be assigned to a unit that requires a language where you can get paid for that language. But when you get paid, the Army is going to be expecting you to put that into usage right then and there when you're assigned to an organization. That's all I have for that.
And the other way you can get to that course is you become an attaché. And
that's true. Yes.
Look that up. You become an attaché for one of the embassies, and you can pick up a language that way also and get sent to the school out in Monterey, California. All right.
I'm trying to remember. I forget what the language platform is, but I know you get at a real discount rate too. Forget what it's called.
Yeah.
The Army
they offered it for free for a long time.
Yeah.
The Army has
Next question. What's a good source to get information on specific units? Captain Johnson?
A lot of times before I go to my unit, I check on FMS Web. It kind of gives me a general overview of what the equipment the unit has, the personnel that they have. So a lot, and then when I go on FMS Web, I can also see the personnel, and it lets me see before I get there what they're going to attempt to slot me as. So before I get there, before I compete for whatever assignment that I want, I can understand if they even have that slot available, because that's a big thing to be going your OER to make sure that you're being slotted in the right slot. And then also once you're inside of your unit, you know, the same common people, you would go to your first sergeant or your XO. Those are like the day-to-day people inside the company. As a commander is trying to look forward and to do other things. So that's the people I go to. And then if nothing else, you also need to go to your peers. Just like in BOLIC, you can test yourselves and see how you're doing yourself by looking at your peers and getting some information from them, even if it's from a different company.
All right. And also I would state that in the Army, it's not the barbershop where you get a lot of information, it's the gym in the unit area. So if you really want to find out what's going on, go to the gym in the unit area before you show up. You'll get it all. All right, next question. How are officers selected to go to certain units? Captain LaCour?
Yeah, so I chose to answer on this question because I've been fortunate to have a unique career, basic branch, traditional Army basic branch, traditional Army functional area, and dark side soft, so fighting for units, fighting for jobs within all of them. So it kind of buckets into three categories. The first one, which is the most prevalent, is the HRC method. As you PCS, you use what's called AIM 2.0. And within AIM 2.0, you're going to be required to put in a resume. And then as your PCS cycle goes through, units will be able to look at your resume and rank it, rack and stack you, and you'll be able to look at units and rack and stack them. Also in that process, you'll also be able to interview. So if you're high up on a list on a unit, they may reach out to you to talk to them. Or if you have a unit high up, you can reach out and talk to them. I would say take those interviews very seriously. So if you want a number one spot, make sure you can sell yourself during that interview. Also, on your resume, keep it updated because periodically the Army will look for key functions or out-of-cycle moves, such as like AI task force and things like this, where they will do keyword searches within that AIM platform. So I would say keep it up to date as much as possible. The second grouping would be your competitive and nominative selections. And these are ones that require some formalized board or process to get into. You'll usually see these come out in MILPER messages. So I would say stay close to your and they'll be able to get you the information on these, but they're for jobs such as West Point instructor or White House communications and other kind of specialty jobs. And then the last way to get jobs, and this is really big, the higher you go and on the dark side with jobs is your mentoring / networks. So with those, you can get by name requests to brigades. You can also, there are jobs out in the Army that you may not know of or have ever heard of, but mentors or other trusted individuals may, in a separate conversation of you, hear about these jobs and are able to fight on your behalf and get you. That's actually how I got the job I'm in today. So having that mentor and always, or that network where they always know your goals, they can also work conversations and get you assignments that way as well. That's what I got.
Okay. I'd ask that Colonel McKnight weigh in as he spent some time up at DC when Branch was there. Please go ahead, sir.
Hey, thank you very, very much. Again, it's a privilege to participate in this. I'm not a graduate from Prairie View. I'm a graduate of Central State University, another HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio. But again, I appreciate the invite, and anytime we're with the opportunity to get together to mentor, it's important. A few points I just want to focus on, and this really covers the entire gambit. Those cadets who are completing their MS4 year, preparing to head off to BOLIC, and as well as those company grade officers and those field grade officers as they continue to serve. And a few key points in no specific order, but as you continue to progress through every single rank, you need to understand that one, our Army's charged you with a certain level of leadership. And what I challenge you all to do is to focus on motivating subordinates and peers rather than manipulating. It is so common that you see officers taking advantage of the charge that they're given, and they work to manipulate situations rather than taking the high road, for a lack of better terms, and working to motivate. And this is especially relevant when we're dealing with UCMJ with subordinates. So just keep that in mind, and just try to, again, we work in an environment where we already have to work twice as hard. So we all acknowledge that up front. You work in a zero defect environment, because any mistake that you make would potentially stagnate your career. And in other segments, other branches, they have a certain luxury that they can work through. So just keep that in mind. You want to motivate rather than manipulate. another concept. A lot of times when you talk about career development, cadets, what you all are looking for, even junior officers, where they're looking for something that they can immediately grasp to, hey, I want to be the best I can be. What can you tell me as a senior officer to help me do that? So I've come up with a little idea, and I challenge you all to do this. For the past 27 years, I learned and made it a point to come in early, and I stayed late. And I did that for the first 120 days of every single sign that I've had. Now, some may ask, hey, what does that do if you're the first one in every single morning and you're the last one to leave? Our Army is based off of perception, and you have to acknowledge that up front. If you go into any single job as you're just starting and you're the first one in every single morning and you're the last one to leave every single day, what perception, what do you establish there to your single soldier that's watching you? Hey, yeah, Lieutenant McKnight, he's in before me every single morning. He's always the last one to leave. This sets the tone as you go into every single assignment you have. And once you establish that, it catapults you. And you talk about those things that set you ahead of your peers. Those are one of those critical things, and it's something that's very simple. 90 to 120 days, have the intestinal fortitude, first in, last out, every single day. It will set a tone as you go to. Now, if you've already you are in an assignment and you've already developed a reputation of being late and not on time for things, it's too late for you to do this. So I challenge you as you go into your next assignment, because that's where it's most critical for you to do. The next point, every single one of us, we need to understand how to solve our boss's problems. A lot of times you get officers, they feel they do it at every single level. As a platoon leader, I remember I said to myself, this is my platoon, this is my platoon. Rather than taking the time to try to figure out, how can I leverage the resources within my platoon to help my battery commander solve his problems? Same thing at a battery commander's level. How can I leverage the resources at my battery to solve my battalion commander's problem? As a battalion commander, I'm doing the exact same thing as a brigade commander. As a brigade commander, I'm doing the exact same thing for my division commander. Please understand, how do you need to understand the person that you're working for and try to figure out how to help that individual solve his problems. And this is another one of those key things that sets you apart, because what you'll see is peers, they're kind of circling the wagons. Hey, this is my tune, this is my company. We don't understand the concept of clearly trying to work to understand, hey, sir, what is bothering you? What can I help you with? What problems, based off the resources that I have at my disposal, can I leverage to help you solve your problems? And when you figure that out, you'll be extremely successful. And then the last point I just want to bring up, and one of the majors earlier brought it up within the context of bowling, and she mentioned about relationships and the fact that this is the opportunity where you're working alongside your peers that, as you continue to progress, these will be the same people that you continue to grow, work alongside, and get promoted with. What I want you all to do is try to focus on building constructive relationships. And I will tell you up front, I'm being here as a colonel in the United States Army, but for a large portion of this time, I looked at my career as a competition. And I was one of those guys who I was trying to be the absolute best, every single thing. I didn't spend time trying to build relationships with people until I probably was a senior major. I was brought up in an environment where, again, you have to work twice as hard to be best. And I looked at everything as a competition. So as you continue to progress, the downside of that is, as you continue to progress, you have to think about the thing that you carry. You're going to develop the confidence. The Army is going to give you that. Reputation matters. And if you develop a reputation where you're perceived as selfish, egotistical, it's not a value to you. So please just take the time to put that olive branch out where you're working to amongst your peers within your branch specifically, because all of my friends were outside of my branch. because again, how I view the world and how I view the competitive nature of the Army. So just please, just take the time to develop and cultivate positive relationships that will be beneficial for yourself and your personal development, but more importantly, your development professionally as a group. That is all I have. Thank you very much. And I just want to say hi to the Taylors. Have not seen you guys in a long time.
All right.
Hey, Will.
So the next question is, are there any popular books of said ordnance branch that I should track down immediately? What I would ask, if anybody knows of any books, please type them in the chat. Please type any books that are available for ordnance officers in the chat that you know of. And we'll move on to the next question is, what role does ethics have in being an effective officer? And that's Lieutenant Colonel Lee.
I know he's still on.
Okay. Thank you for having me on. It's a Lieutenant Colonel.
You're coming in a little broken.
Can't hear you.
You're coming in broken and to not hearing. Yeah. Hey, you're still coming in. You're still coming in broken. We're gonna check back with you. We'll come back to you. Hey, can you hear me? I don't think he can hear either. Hey, Rich, can you mute?
So, with regard to your character and the way you act,
We can't hear you. All right, let's move on to the next question here. As an introvert, how do I stay competitive? Captain Johnson.
One of the things is, I try to keep it short. One of the things is you have to make your words count. So if you don't like speaking, you have to make your words count in every meeting. I'm not necessarily a true introvert. I can branch out, but when I'm by myself, I usually stay by myself. So you have to make your words count. And you also have to understand, to stay competitive, you have to have the ability to conduct small talk. So if you can conduct small talk and make your words count whenever you go to meetings, then you can you probably can be successful. My last brigade commander was an introvert, and he told me that in his initial counseling to me. So at every moment that I saw him, more than likely I knew that he really probably didn't want to talk. And when I got my final counseling, that's one of the things that he actually brought up. I didn't make him uncomfortable by trying to talk to him every time I saw him around the building. So.
Can I add to that?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I think if you're an introvert, you need to practice on how to be an extrovert. And when you're in front of soldiers, and you have to practice on how to be an extrovert. Just look at it as almost like a challenge where you're getting on stage and the lights are coming on, and you need to be an extrovert. Over.
Yeah, can I just add to that? This is Colonel George. I think that when you are an introvert, you are the most competitive. I don't necessarily think that you have to be an extrovert to be the most competitive. I don't know if we know who submitted that question, but I would offer an assessment to that individual. I'm going to send Ms. Thibodeau my email address. I'm a human relations strategist. And if you look at some of the studies and statistics of general officers, most general officers are actually introverts. When you're introverted, you take the time to listen, you take the time to understand. One of our best assets is our understanding of people and human relations, and our soldiers are our best resources. Oftentimes it's our extroverted, our talkative, most outgoing, and we understand that as leaders, yes, we may be out front, but sometimes we're not always thinking. And so I would offer to say that when we think of introverted, we think of someone who's not speaking, but they are paying attention. So you are you're being introverted. And so as a human relations strategist that I am, I've taught a lot of soldiers how to be super competitive by building relationships and understanding who they are. And one of that is taking that knowledge of that introverted personality and connecting with other folks. And so I'd love to find out who asked that question and make them an absolutely powerful officer. And that's just understanding who they are and how to move around some other people. So if we could find out, and I'll get with Ms. Thibodeau and ask that and find out who submitted that question. I'd love to engage that person. But that's how you become competitive, is learning how to use who you are and understand who other people are and move around them.
Hey, and moving right along, hey, the one thing I wanted to do, because I know Colonel Lee had a bad connection, I just want to say something about ethics. And the bottom line on ethics is be ethical at all times. That's on and off duty, okay? So be ethical at all times. Don't think just because you don't have the uniform on or just because you're hanging out with your friends at a club in a different city from where your base is, that what happens there will not follow you back to the job. So be ethical at all times. All right, so moving on. How do I stand out above my peers when I am the only Black officer at any level? And this is Lieutenant Colonel Lee. Hey, hold on, before we do that, Rich, I know we got another 30 minutes after this set up for a meeting, but I'm telling you, we're not gonna make it through another half page with these questions if we don't go ahead and say we're gonna take that time. I mean, this is all good stuff.
That's fine. We keep going. I don't want to. If anyone,
I mean, if you got a date with Burger King at 12:30, just go ahead and get your burger. But I think this is all good, and we need to use this while we have it.
Okay, we'll keep going.
All right, let's do that.
All right. I called in on audio and not using my computer, so hopefully y'all can hear me better now.
Oh, yeah, you're excellent, good. Excellent.
All right, good. So I keep it real short. So basically you cover ethics. Basically ethics, look, that precedes you everywhere. Your character precedes you everywhere. So if you're coming into a unit and you already have a character to where in a previous unit you were looked at as morally unethical, it's gonna follow you for the rest of your life. So don't make any mistake. You can make a mistake in your branch, in your duties, and recover from that mistake, but you are never gonna recover from an ethical mistake. So just don't even take it to that level. As far as being the only Black officer in your unit, so I am infantry. So in most of the units I was assigned, I was the only officer that was Black in my unit. So being competitive and standing out as a Black officer, I still would say that you stand out as a Black officer the same way you would stand out as a white officer. You need to just perform at the highest level at all times. There's gonna be, I use the 80-20 rule, and just as Colonel Wright was stating, he hit a lot of it right on the head. I use the 80-20 rule. There's gonna be 80% of your formation and of your unit that is just gonna be mid-tier and bottom of the barrel. 20% of that unit is gonna be your horses. They're gonna be the guys running. They're gonna be the guys that the commanders come to as your main effort, as your decisive effort. That other 80, they're gonna be in support. So you're either gonna be in that 20 or you're gonna be in that 80, whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, whatever. So you need to work to be in that 20, because if you're not, you're in that supporting role. I say that as an infantry guy, and it chimes in every branch. And that's all I got.
Hey, thanks, appreciate that. All right, now moving on, Colonel Rector, you have the next one. Are there any basic key principles to take to heart regarding the way I should conduct myself as an officer?
Of course, good afternoon, team. This is Colonel Jeff Rector. I'll definitely just say, in the interest of time, definitely like to kind of point out 5 C's. That's what I consider the 5 C's. I usually from a company commander, battalion commander, IG, and also as a brigade commander recently. I consider the 5 C's, and they stand for character, competence, commitment, caring, and maintaining your composure. I think if you can do all those 5 things in unison and constantly live those 5 things, principles, I think you will have no problem, you know, it teaches you how to not only conduct yourself, but also how to treat others. If you continue to show that, I think you should have no problem moving out, moving up, and doing whatever the hell you want to do throughout the military ranks. That's all I have, Obi.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. Next
Sir,
question.
can you repeat those? I'm sorry. Can you repeat those 5 C's
Hey,
again?
can
Sir?
somebody type those as he's repeating them, please?
I've already put them in the chat.
They're on the chat.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, you guys are on it. All right. What are some basic principles I should always follow when I enter into my commander's office? Wow.
So basic principles you need to maintain. 1, don't go into your commander's office until you've been recognized by him. Always maintain your military bearing. Have something to write on and write with. And don't get into a relaxed mode and think that it's a chill opportunity. And then the last thing is be a sponge.
Yes, sir. All right. Now some of these questions you're going to see, we've actually touched on them throughout other discussion. So again, try to make your answers as succinct as possible. How do I be an effective leader? And that was Major Gross and Colonel Taylor.
Okay, hi. Things have changed since the time I retired 21 years ago, but what will get you through your career is if you, as the individual, you read the regulations and DAPAMs, FMs for yourself so that you know what they say and you're not depending on someone else's interpretation of what the regulation says, okay? That's the best thing you can do. For example, some of the questions I see where I had to look this up, but FM 6-22, Army Leadership, that seems to be one that'll tell you all the levels from second lieutenant through major, I believe is what some of the questions are. And of course, my favorite, AR 670-1. So when you're looking at your uniform or someone else's, you need to looking for things that are out of place. Some people, I call it a hazardous duty. I always look at things and recognize things that are not correct, like a flag being upside down, for example. But read regulations for yourself. Don't depend on someone else.
Okay, Colonel Taylor?
Yeah, I'm stepping in for her because she had to take an important call. How to become an effective leader. Be technically and tactically proficient at your job, as the young lady just stated, by knowing the regulations and where to find information. And don't be afraid to ask for help. On the technical side, understanding your job from the lowest to the highest. And I haven't heard this mentioned, understanding what's happening 2 levels above you. Just remember that, what's happening 2 levels above you. On the tactical side, understanding operations orders, what each branch brings to an organization, how each branch works, understanding each staff section and what they do, whether S1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Don't be afraid if you're asked a question, don't be afraid to inform your boss or someone if you don't know the right answer, that you will go find the answer and follow up with them. I haven't heard that mentioned as of yet. Also, map reading. And I know the Army is pushing this right now because we're also focused on what's happened digitally. What happens if all the digital components you have go out? Can you still navigate with a map? So make sure you understand that, because that's going to be important, especially on the combat arms side of the house. Maintenance of your vehicles. To be an effective leader, maintenance of your vehicles and equipment. Be a good time manager. Also, master's degree. I haven't heard anyone talk about education. If that fits within your schedule while you're working, pursue or seek further higher education while you can, because you may get to a point in your career where you may decide you want to leave the Army, but you know you've gotten something out of it. Also, some books here. I know, and I was going to write these in, but the Army Officer's Guide, and then these books as they sell in the PX and what have you. Get these books, the Evaluator, the Mentor, and the Writer. Keep those books. It'll help you with counseling, writing evaluations, and what have you. Go pick up those books and keep them at your house. Last, we had an old saying, be where you're supposed to be, on time, in the right uniform, with something to write with and to write on. You can't go wrong as an officer. And last but not least, just remember, mission first and people always. You need to make sure you accomplish your mission, but you got to take care of people at the same time. But make sure that mission gets completed. And that's all we have.
Okay. Next question. How do I create and maintain a good relationship with my raider as a junior, mid-level, and senior officer? Lieutenant Colonel.
So the way an individual does that is obviously you have to be on time, on your mission, and then you need to be able to, you need to know your job and then how your job fits into the overall picture. Then you need to be able to understand the level or the mission of the command 2 levels above wherever it is that you are, so you can communicate with your commander on those particular things, or your raider on those particular things that are pertinent to him or her as they're going about getting their mission. So then the other thing is to make sure that you understand what your raider's intent is for you. Understand what your raider's intent is for you to accomplish, and then go after those things.
Hey, the one thing I would add to that is some raiders don't like the counsel. And you don't want to be that person that gets surprised in the end. Make sure that you have scheduled counseling sessions with your raider. Next question, and this is open. What keywords do I use when writing my OER support form? Yeah, pretty broad. That's a whole OPD on its own. But can anybody just summarize that? Any keywords you can offer for the OER support form?
Yes, this is Colonel Edwards. I'm not a graduate of Prairie View A&M, and thank you for allowing me to come on. I am a graduate of an HBCU, Texas College. Now, I don't know, well, I know the OERs have changed, and I've had an opportunity to sit on 3 different promotion boards. Hello, I see you. And as I'm looking at this OER, it's one simple word: outstanding. When you look up in the left-hand corner of the OER, that is the first box that you see. It says, outstanding performance, must promote. When I sat on promotion boards, you would have to look at from 17 to maybe 2,000 evaluations. And if you opened up and you saw that a person had an outstanding performance, the simple word outstanding, you didn't have to read the rest of it, because you knew then that this person was going to receive a high mark. And then when you go down to the bottom of the OER, and that senior rater puts the same thing, well then you can mark that a 6+. And if anyone has set up a promotion board, knows what I'm talking about. And so you have outstanding performance, satisfactory performance, unsatisfactory performance, and other. So if you want to get the most out of your ratings, not only on your OER, but the support forms as well, you always want to be outstanding. And I've also made some other comments that I would like to go over later on in the comments at the end. Thank you.
Just to piggyback on what, can you guys hear me, or am I coming in broken? Okay. Just to
echo. I don't know what that is.
Okay. Just to piggyback on what Colonel Edwards said, as an officer, you have to understand that nobody knows what you've done better than you. So you have to continue to take down those notes on the things that you've done. Your rater, they are, they're seeing what you're doing, they're watching what you're doing, but they don't know what you've done in the background. So you need to be able to express that on your OER support form. And you need to also make sure that you get your raters OER support form as well, so you can know what their intent is and what their mission is, as well as their boss's intent and what their boss's mission is, so that you can align your task and your OER support form with what it is that they are seeking to have done while they're in their position as well. And you want to also stray away from, falling into that category with promote with peers. That's not a good look. So just wanted to throw those things out there.
I'm sorry. In regards to support forms and what's important, I think it's not so much about words. What you're looking for are things where you can quantify yourself. When building a support form, you want to be quantifiable. So you're looking for numbers. You're looking for something that's tangible that you can actually grab. So if I'm a Fraggle writer, a fragmentary order writer, it's about the number of orders that I've written. So you want to focus on quantifiable things that you've accomplished to place on the support form. Over.
Absolutely. I just wanted to echo that. I recently sat on the promotion board, and I also recently just completed serving as an investigating officer on a case where someone complained about their evaluation was unfair because they got a bad rating. And this individual actually quantified, they did a great job quantifying the work that they did in their support form. And their rater actually did a good job quantifying their work in their rating. However, the senior rater rated them good job, but the senior rater still wrote, yeah, but they're not ready for promotion. And my job as the investigator was to determine, was it fair? So just like the gentleman who just commented, the best thing that you can do, or the words that you're looking for, are quantifying it and making sure that your work is measurable, so that if it ever came back up, when I'm looking to see if you did a good job, I'm looking for, is the work measurable? Is there proof? Is there evidence of what you've done? You can say it all day, but when it comes back to that fairness, we can say that we've done things, but if you've written it, if you've done your due diligence, because believe it or not, as military officers, we know that you should have a rater who a good officer will take the time to counsel you and rate you. But I hate to say it, most times you end up writing your own. Most times you do. Now, I just have to say, I would be remiss if I didn't. Colonel Edwards, who just spoke, I just had to do this. When I was a first lieutenant, he sat me down and he counseled me. And he said, Colonel George, let me show you how to do a support form. He taught me how to do mine. So thank you, Colonel Edwards. I just wanted to publicly say that. I don't mean to take up airtime here, but he did. He taught me how to calendar. He said, every time you do something, you write it on this big old calendar. So he was my first introduction, and I thank you for that. And I still do that to this day. It was easy for me to go back and quantify my work, because later on in my career, I've had to always do that on my support form. So no one can ever say, hey, you did, they tell me to write it, I write it myself. But so my point is, so excellent words, quantifiable, make it measurable, because every now and then somebody will get mad and still won't write you up appropriately, even though it's measurable. But if it comes like up in a case, believe it or not, as long as you quantify it, you can get it through. So excellent word.
Hey, let me add something real quick and you can move on.
You're breaking up, Earl. We can't hear you.
Did you mute yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So as someone who is currently serving as a brigade commander, I think all those points were good points. the first thing the individual needs to do is definitely get the support form of their rater and senior rater, right? You don't know what you're supposed to be doing if you have no idea what your bosses are trying to do. So you need to make sure that your stuff is nested with their stuff. Secondly, the new officers, the lieutenants, the cadets that are about to be commissioned, they need to understand that the rater is responsible for rating them on performance. The senior rater is the person who's responsible for rating them on potential, all right? So it's not like the old Army days where the raters can do both. It's now the rater is doing performance, the senior rater is doing potential, right? So you gotta make sure that you understand that because your OER will get kicked back if one of those two raters are doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. So you want to make sure that you're understanding how that process works. And yes, you definitely want to make sure that things are quantifiable, right? You need to know what those buzzwords are that that the raters are looking for, and that the boards are looking for. So one of the things that I did not know early on in my career was how to write an OER and how an OER should be written for me. And too often, Black officers are given the basic words that put on their OERs that oh, he has the potential to do this, that, or the other. But the words that Colonel Edwards was talking about are the words that Black officers normally are not getting. And even though they deserve it, the officer himself or herself is not aware that those words are important words to be added to their OER. So it makes the difference. And also where in that OER write-up, is important in terms of where those words are placed in that write-up, in that narrative, right? So you gotta make sure you understand that as well. So, but good points by Colonel Edwards and Colonel George. I think they're absolutely spot on.
So for you young officers, make sure that you get with a senior officer to review, if possible, your OER before it goes final. And in most cases, especially if you're writing it yourself, you will have time to do that. So make sure you find somebody that can always review what's being said about you before it goes final. Because once it goes final, that's when you're gonna run some problems. All right?
James.
Yes.
Hey, this is Tony. I'm not on camera, but I've just got one comment that I want to make in reference to that with your OER. So, I sat in on the Rocks town hall that they actually had last week, and one of the points that was made was even when you don't agree with your OER, there's a way of which you can actually go back and talk to your senior rater. It doesn't necessarily mean that they may change what they actually written, but at least you've made it known what your concerns are. So, you just have to be careful about how you actually go back in and have that conversation if it's not what you think you should be, are worthy of actually getting. But no, in the end, it is them that actually makes the final decision. But it's great to be able to have that conversation. Some senior raters are welcome to it. Others, it is what it is. But you just have to be very cautious of how you actually do that. And I just want to make sure that, the young officers understand that.
Hey, thanks, ma'am. And congratulations on your second command.
Thank you.
Let's see. Captain Gross, if I disagree with my OER, what are the proper procedures I should take? I think Colonel Gant just answered that one. If you have anything to add, please go ahead.
She's not present.
Okay, good. What are some of the schools I will be required to attend? And I'm not sure what level that came from.
So if nobody else has anything, sir, I'll speak on this a little
Go right
bit.
ahead.
So when it comes to schools, that depends on what unit you're in and what your job is. So If you are going to a unit that has an airborne requirement, you might be required to go to airborne school. If you're going to an air assault unit, you might be required to be air assault qualified, which means you have to go to these schools. So this is really dependent on what you're doing, what type of unit you're going in, the requirements that you have to have in order to be a part of that unit. And if you can't meet those requirements, usually you're reassigned somewhere else. That's just when it comes to tactical schools and when it comes to assignments for specific units. But of course, you have your career schools that you have, like your PME, which is of course your BOLIC, your CCC, your Captain's Career Course that you go to, be it your own branches or different branches. I personally am Air Defense. I went to Aviation Captain's Career Course. And then whenever you transition from company grade, from captain to major into field grades, your ILE or CGSC, be that resident or distance learning or a satellite course. And then of course, when you move on to Lieutenant Colonel, which I haven't gotten to yet, I'm still working on that one, and that slips my mind which school that is for Lieutenant Colonel. If one of my Lieutenant Colonels can help me out with that one. It just depends on what kind of you're going to, and usually those requirements that you're given will be in your orders. So you'll know in advance if you have to complete a school requirement before you go to a unit, or when you get to your job, if you need to do an additional duty like CBRN. I also did CBRN as a second lieutenant when I got to my first unit because they needed a CBRN officer. We were deploying, so they needed a unit movement officer. I went to unit movement officer school. So I was a ground liaison officer, which required me to be qualified to do joint air operations. So I had to go to a joint air operations course. It's really dependent on the jobs you're going to, the specific skill sets that you need for that job, and then getting into those schools to be able to effectively do those jobs.
Thank you. That's very good. All right. Next question. How important is it to the longevity of my career to take command?
Repeat that question now, James.
In other words, do you have to take command in order to stay in the Army? I think that's the summary of it.
I guess it depends on your branch. For some people, they can stay in the Army and not take command. But I think it is a general rule. Most people, you do have to do command, but they have some special examples for, there's special cases for like the medical branches and stuff. You don't really need to take command for those.
But at all levels, the focus is on being able to actually take command. So, I mean, if we're talking the Captain's Career Course, yes, everybody wants to be a company commander. But when you're talking Lieutenant Colonel and above, all those, your KD jobs, all those things you do make you competitive for command. Now, you can actually become a Lieutenant Colonel and not be selected for command and still retire at 20 years. But the ultimate goal, if you're trying to reach the potential at each of the levels or trying to be in the top, 15% of your class, you have to take command to be able to elevate from lieutenant colonel, from a battalion command to a brigade command, and potential on to a division command, if selected for a general officer. But in order for progression of that sort, command is essential.
Can I say something real quick? As a functional area that is in a branch that doesn't require a command, I would just say that just do your research on what your key development positions are, and have that understanding that when you jump into those positions that don't require the command, like the one I'm in, the positions for colonel and possible general officer are so slim that you just have to understand that you may not get to that level. So just know that when jumping into those certain branches, but command isn't always necessary, even company command. I'll never take a command likely, but I will probably cap out at lieutenant colonel as well. I know that, and I'm okay with that. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay. Next question. Is there ever a point I should ask for clarification? If so, how do I ask without appearing unknowledgeable?
All right. Well, I guess it's back on me.
Yes.
So as a technical officer and serving on staff or div chief for probably the majority of my career, I get this a lot. So I would answer this question as, if there's ever a point I should ask for clarification, when do you do it? As soon as possible. However, there are triage steps to look for. The first question you should ask yourself is, can I Google this, or is this intent-based? If you can Google it, go back and try to Google it prior to asking the stupid question. But if it's something that you really need to know their intent on answering that, get that intent up front. The second triage step is this something my peers or a trusted mentor can answer? Same as the Google part. If you don't have to, or say it's your senior rater or that you don't want to look stupid in front of, that's why we have forums like this. Maybe there's someone that's also knowledgeable in that subject that you can go to that you trust. And then the last step is judge the forum. So if it's like a staff meeting or a one-on-one, just ask the and just ask the question immediately. But if it's a higher level brief, try to schedule an office later and then email read ahead questions so that person has time to prepare his answers. Also, make sure you're trying not to embarrass the speaker if you do get in one of these situations. Don't ask a question that may, because they'll be less likely to help you get that answer for the future. That's all I got.
Okay. Moving on, we're going to move on to the reserve component section now. We're going to wrap this up in about another 5 minutes because there's a specific topic we want to hit before we clear out of here. And we're going to have to figure out when we can close out with the rest of these questions. We're going to have to do another OPD. That's the bottom line. So we'll get with the board members and see when we can actually do that. So just be aware of that. How do I find a reserve unit? Colonel Strong?
Hey, if Colonel Strong's not on, I'll take that.
Okay.
So with the reserve units, they have what's called the Army Reserve Careers Division, and they have they are charged with ensuring that reserve component officers and NCOs are in the units and in the MOSs that they need to be in. So that is where you can start. You can easily Google, ARCD and pull up their information, and they'll have career counselors that can help you navigate the units. Every unit in the reserves, for example, is required to have a retention NCO who also has access to the vacancies that are out there on the reserve side of the house. I don't know specifically about the National Guard, but I know each unit at I believe the company and higher level on the reserve side of the house does have a retention NCO whose responsibility it is to manage those vacancies and or to have access to those vacancies and help soldiers get into units that are out there. So that's really the primary way to do that. The other way is obviously to go straight to a unit and ask what vacancies they have, and then try to get into that unit that way. And the last thing is when if you are already someone who is in a unit and is just seeking to go to another unit, your retention NCO should be able to easily find the vacancies for you and get you into the unit. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay.
Also, I just wanted to say, this is Captain Mathis. I just wanted to say too, for those out there that's already connected to their branch manager, read those emails that the branch manager sends, because they always send positions all day, every day. So just read those emails, because sometimes those positions are positions that are good that you can't really find through the career manager, because they gave it to the branch manager to go out there and and recruit for those positions.
Okay. This is what we're going to do at this point is we've got several questions left. We're running short on time, and there is I believe it's a great benefit for us to discuss the article that was sent out. Did everybody get a chance to read that article that was sent out? Most people? If you didn't, please go back and read it. And it was Reflections of the Curse of Racism in the U.S. Military. Hey, what I would ask is, Colonel McKnight, if you could give a little bit of background and get into the discussion on this before we close this out.
Yeah, thank you very much. In regards to this article specifically, I just want to highlight the author, Lieutenant General Retired David Barno. I had the pleasure of serving as his chief of operations, his aide-de-camp, his executive officer in a number of consecutive positions. And I was probably his last aide to retire him out. So a person I think very highly of, and a person who has worked really, really hard to attempt to level the playing field to give minority officers opportunity. The article very well received, but what we're trying to get to, and what I think this is a discussion that he and I have had over a number of different occasions, or for me specifically at a number of different ranks. But the challenge that we have with the current system is, despite the fact that it's a significant concern that minority officers aren't represented specifically in the combat arms branches. I mean, if we look across even the group we have here and the level of success that we've all had, very few of us are coming out of combat arms branches, maybe one or two, if that. So this really goes back to the challenge. So at the end of the day, as we look at developing our senior leaders that lead our armies and our joint forces, they're typically coming out of combat arms backgrounds. So we're essentially missing something. And one of the key things that he highlights there, we have two 4-star generals that are African American specifically. So we're routinely underrepresented as we transition to general officer level assignments, and more importantly, general officer level commands. And it really stems from the fact that we're underrepresented within the combat arms branches. Over.
Okay. Colonel Gann, I know you've seen some of the challenges in your organizations that you've been in. Can you give us some insights on what some of the things that are being done in the military to try to overcome these things?
Well, yes. Okay. So for those that don't know, I'm an engineer branch. So the biggest thing is to make sure that we are identifying these officers at a younger, when they are lieutenants and captains, because that's where they're getting lost at. Either they're getting out, or they're not actually being identified or being given the opportunity to actually do positions that allow them the potential or the ability to be able to be seen or identified as someone who we should continue to move forward in the ranks. And so meaning I think it's about, I'm the senior African-American female, but we've got a few African-American GOs, one and one to be. And so we've identified that we're going to actually be more deliberate in actually identifying who these personnel are, and then trying to actually work them into the system. It really also is having that good relationship with the human resource branch manager, regardless of whatever branch you're in, especially with the combat arms, because now they're more open to being able to say, hey, we're looking to find who are the minorities and where they're stationed and what they're actually doing, so that we can continue to try to mold them and make sure they're getting some of the right jobs or the KD jobs that need to be gotten for them to continue to excel in their careers. So that is from the most part from us as an engineer branch, because we are very small as well. But being at close to Fort Knox, I've had the great opportunity to be able to have quite a few conversations. And I would just say also, with what's going on right now in the across the nation, there's a lot of attention that's being put on this. Major General Evans, the Cadet Command Commander, had a town hall just about race relations and understanding the plight of minority officers, and also encouraged about the combat arms and getting more minorities to actually go that route. So we have to take advantage of this opportunity that's here and try to make sure that we are continue to have those conversations, but also identifying those potential officers that can continue, that we want to mentor to continue to elevate throughout their careers.
I think this is a problem that's near and dear to my heart. Just like I'm sure it's near and dear to every single person. This is one of the reasons why we're having this forum and we continue to do things like this. This is really an institutional problem, and the problem is it's not about African Americans being promoted. This is about African American officers being selected for key positions, key developmental positions, and the majority of the time, these key developmental positions are subjective. So they're not selected. For you to become an XO or S3, guess what? That's not going in front of a board. This is a subjective decision that's made between a battalion commander and a brigade commander to develop a field grade slate, and that's subsequently approved at the GO level. But the bottom line there is this is where African American officers are missing the boat, because you're not hitting those key gates because of the subjective nature of the selection itself. So as an institution, what the Army has to try to grapple here is how do we work around the subjective nature to where it's evenly balanced, and we're doing just like Colonel Gant mentioned, where we're ensuring that these officers that we identify who have this key talent are placed in positions where they're hitting those key developmental positions where they're typically selected subjectively. So that's what we really need to overcome. We do a great job in regards to promoting, but again, it's you have to, in order to be a battalion commander in combat arms, guess what? You have to be not only a successful battalion XO and S3, but you probably need to be a brigade S3, if not a brigade S3, a brigade DCO. So, and those three jobs, which are critical, are subjective. So if you don't hit those key jobs, you're not gonna lead soldiers within a combat arms unit. And this is something that we need to try to get after. Over.
Hey, this Colonel Terry. So from my perspective, there's obviously a couple of things going on. It's not just one thing that has gotten us to this point. I look at it as, for example, a cultural thing with respect to, I think someone specifically mentioned combat arms branches. I think for a long time, our Black families, don't like our sons and, our sons going into combat, right? And so when you have a choice between going into a combat field versus a non-combat field, the natural tendency for us African Americans is to steer away from the combat arms branches for that reason. And then secondly, on top of that, you have the white establishment within the military branches who are trying to steer you away from the combat branches because they know those are the branches that actually get you promoted up the ranks to general officer, right? So it's almost like it's almost a double whammy for you, where as a culture, you're not trying to really go into combat. Your parents don't want you going into combat, and so they're trying to make sure that you don't sign up to be an infantry officer or what have you, and it's been indoctrinated into you. But then at the same time, those folks who are quote unquote in power in the military are actually steering you away from signing up into those branches, because those are the branches that end up running the Army. So it's a complicated thing, but we all see it. We've seen it. Now the question is, what's actually going to be done about it? So, for example, if we were put into combat branches at the same rate or same numbers as the white kids are, then the idea of being the only Black officer that a brigade commander or battalion commander can select from, even subjectively, right, becomes a non-issue. Because if I have 5 Black officers in my unit and 5 white officers in my unit, right, I don't have to be, now I'm now the odds are, the playing field is a little more level. But if I have 10 white officers in my unit and 1 Black officer, it's pretty easy for me to subjectively select a white person, right, for those key positions, because I can just say, well, I only had one Black officer, but I had 10 white officers, don't blame me, blame them for not wanting to come into the combat arms branches, right? So yeah, it's an issue that needs to be resolved. I think the Army has always, at least specifically the Army branch, we've known about it for years. They've just chosen not to do anything until now.
All right. Hey, but definitely, we could definitely talk about that one just about all day. But before we conclude here, we need to get to some very important discussion, and that is about the membership to the alumni group. So, Mr. President.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming, and we know that we tried to cover a lot of things, and we appreciate you giving your time. I know we stayed a little bit longer, but we do plan on having this every month, so we really won't be such a big chunk the next time. So we're going to try and tailor where we geared it toward one thing, geared toward maybe 1 or 2 particular topics, so we can still make use of the time and not take up a lot of your time. Well, we do appreciate everyone who came on the call. I'm going to show some slides because it's really about what we're trying to do with the ROTC alumni chapter is get more people to join so we can do more things like this and maybe even do it on a greater scale. Even when the pandemic ends, we're going to continue the Zoom calls because everyone's located around the country. This is the best method to bring everyone together. So that is one thing that's going to happen. We're going to continue the Zoom call just for the fact so we can reach out to each other better than trying to get everyone here. Let me pull back up. Sorry. Let me share my screen because
Colonel Hamilton, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, Colonel Hamilton. Hey, thank you, and to Ms. Hawes. My name is Jesse French. So let me just conclude some of the things that I've heard a lot of the esteemed personnel commenting. So I'm an old AG, warrant officer, retired, 21 years of service. I am currently the director of human resources here at Fort Leonard Wood, home of the MP Regiment, Chemical Regiment, and the engineers. So, with these BOLIC students, and my staff is responsible in processing these young officers, especially in our ROTC world. So just let me say that these second lieutenants, they're graduating, they're coming out of college, and they're hitting first here to be really an Army officer now, leader. And it is a travesty that I am beginning to see a lot of them get here and just lose literally their mind. Because we have had some of these second lieutenants that have gotten themselves in some trouble, and I'm here eliminate them out of the Army because they have just not followed the rules that they are about to enter. So please share with these young lieutenants when they get here, get into that right frame of mind of I'm now in a profession, and that is the Army profession, and that's now leading by example. So share that with those second lieutenants because I see them every day when I in process them, when my staff is there to in process them. I heard earlier about the evaluations. Everyone, please go out and read AR 623-3 and DA PAM 623-3. That's our evaluation reporting system. So you can always know what is required of you as an officer and for your rater and senior raters. It's all listed in there for you. The other thing, key point I wanted to bring up is, when we as officers, and first of all, thanks to everybody for your service. I done did 21 years on active duty. I'm still here serving as a civil servant, as one of the senior leaders across this installation for a total of about 43 years. And I'm still serving, still taking care of soldiers. So please just let those second lieutenants know. Don't come here thinking that you're still in college. You're not. And the commanding general in this installation is zero tolerance, and they're coming here drinking, getting all just going crazy. I don't know, but and occasionally I go down and I talk to those students and let them know, hey guys, y'all got to settle down a little bit. You got to listen to your team leads out there. Don't get into trouble, because this commander general and these commandants here are zero tolerance toward going out drinking and doing all these very things, because they're going to eliminate you. And you done spent 4 years in school, and now you're going to punish that by what you're doing here on the installation. So please keep that in mind and convey that to them. So